Welcome to 5 o'clock Tea Talks, everyone. I'm your host, Seda Tekeci, editor-in-chief of Coach Magazine Global, life coach and passionate advocate for personal and professional growth. Over the years, I've had the privilege of connecting with some of the most inspiring thought leaders, pioneers, and visionaries in the coaching world, bringing their stories and insights to you. Today, I'm thrilled to guide you through another enlightening session where we'll delve into the ideas, experiences, and wisdom that shape our industry. So grab your tea, sit back, and let's dive into today's conversation. Our webinar series, 5 o'clock Tea Talk, has reached its 28th episode, and we are thrilled to welcome our guest today, Professor David Clutterbuck. Let me introduce him first. David Clutterbuck is one of the early pioneers of developmental coaching and mentoring, and the co-founder of the European Mentoring and Coaching Council, EMCC. Over his remarkable career, David has authored more than 70 books, including groundbreaking evidence-based works on coaching culture and team coaching. He is also a visiting professor at 4 prestigious business schools and leads Coaching and Mentoring International, a global network of specialist mentoring and coaching training consultants. David's work has had a transformative impact on the coaching and mentoring profession, and he continues to shape its future with his research, thought leadership, and dedication to the development of others. Welcome, Professor David Clutterbuck. How are you today?
I'm fine, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Yes.
Thank you so much. I also have started this series with EMCC Global ex-president Rıza Kadılar. He was the president 2 years ago when I started this series, and you are one of the co-founders, so I'm really honored. Before we start with the questions, as always, I would like to encourage our audience to hit the subscribe button on our channel for more insightful sessions. Don't miss out on this enlightening 5 o'clock Tea Talk. Hit the notification bell and remember to subscribe. For more great content, visit www.thecoachmagazine.com and enjoy our quarterly magazines. And also, it will be helpful to make comments below, like and share this video with your friends. So back to our conversation. The first question. As a pioneer of developmental coaching and mentoring, what inspired you to co-found the European Mentoring and Coaching Council, and how has the organization evolved since its inception?
So it was a long time ago. It was 1991 that we set up EMCC, or what was to become EMC, the EMC at that point. But I often describe myself as one of probably the only survivor of the original pioneers of coaching and mentoring. Everybody else is either dead or deaf or demented, and I'm slightly deaf. So, but it's been a fantastic journey, and where I got involved through mentoring, because back in the early in the 1980s, the early 1980s, there really wasn't any mention of coaching. There was a little bit from Timothy Galway's work on the inner game of tennis, but we didn't have a coaching profession. What we did have was a lot of organizations creating mentoring programs. So mentoring was becoming something that was more formalized and more targeted. It started with people with young graduates joining organizations, but quickly diversified into programs trying to get more women into senior positions, for example. Mentoring was where it all started. And then in 1991, we brought together lots of academics and people from large companies and practitioners to form what was then EMC. And we set up some really clear principles then. The starting point was in Sheffield Hallam University, and all the way through, EMCC has been the organisation that has pioneered the concept of evidence-based. So research is fundamental to everything that EMCC does. How do we validate things? So there's a lot of stuff out there which is unevidenced practice. But we're really concerned, what is the evidence that's for something? And we continue that to this day. We have a group which I'm part of. We call the Coach Maturity Research Group. looking at how coaches grow and mature.
Mm.
And strangely enough, it doesn't actually fit with how they actually mature doesn't fit with the generalized competency frameworks of some of the other organizations in the field. Is much more much more divergent than that and varied than that. So along in as we got into the 1990s, we found that a lot of people were coming along and saying, I'm a coach. I'm a professional coach. And we say, well, okay, fine, good. And what do you do? And then they started describing what they did, very much in the terms of being a mentor. And we said, don't you mean mentor? And they said, no, I'm a coach. And so we said, okay, that's fine. Well, if you're doing similar things to us, come and join us. And that's how EMCC evolved. So, and at that time, there was quite a movement primarily from the United States to try and undermine mentors because but there were people who were professional coaches who basically saw people who were mentors doing for free what they were trying to charge people for. So they created artificial differences, like mentors give advice and coaches don't. Actually, the history of coaching has been advice giving, and it's only in the 1990s that it shifted from
Mm.
advice giving in any significant way. And mentoring has always been about helping people to think things through for themselves, to have the conversation with themselves that they need. So the EMCC has grown and prospered around this concept of firstly of diversity of approaches, really important, and a very clear scientific underpinning to what it does. So all the standards and everything and all the programs are built around the university, the principles that a good university would operate under.
Yes, I've seen the manuals that you are using in EMCC. It's like a very big process of a university degree. It's
Yes.
you can get a degree from mentoring, probably.
Well, yes, and the master's level EMCC qualification is the equivalent of a degree, a
Yes,
postgraduate degree. So,
yes,
uh, and so that's I think it's putting some gravitas, some weight behind coaching and mentoring.
yes. So your work also emphasized creating a coaching culture within organizations. From your perspective, what are the key elements required to establish and sustain such a culture successfully?
Well, one of the things that we started off by a deep study of what organizations were doing, and David Meganson, the late David Meganson, my great friend and colleague, and I conducted this research, and we identified that there were certain characteristics, things that you did that actually built the coaching way of thinking into the way that the organization did its ordinary business. Um, uh, and so how do when you're having conversations with people, to what extent are they coaching conversations? And they don't have to be formally we're following a coaching template. It's about the mindset of coaching, the inquiry, the sense that we may be making we question our assumptions. What do we know and what do we think we know? How do we actually um, um, generate the right questions rather than the right answers?
Mm,
Because the right question will evolve, will continue for a long time. The answer may change according to the circumstances, everything that's going on around it. It's the
mm,
question that's most important. Um, and so coaching is a process of evolving questions that help people have the conversations they need to have with themselves. And that's the same at individual level, at team level, at team of teams level, at functional level, at organizational level, and even at societal level. Is the criteria asking the right questions? So the coaching mindset is all about that. We also determined some time ago that um, the the critical point of critical fulcrum, if you like, of team coach of a coaching culture is the team.
mhm,
The team is where people come together and do things. It's the active ingredient. It's like the cell in the human body.
mhm,
Um, and so the coaching culture needs to be developed inside the team. Now, there are all sorts of impediments to that because most line managers don't feel comfortable coaching. They'd far rather be doing something than coaching. Um, and and also, of course, if they think that I've got to be the coach rather than I have to create a coaching culture, it's the wrong. They're losing the point.
Yes.
And so we did some non-empirical research a long time ago, and we asked lots of people. So tell us about what happened when your line manager went off on a line manager as coach course. Um, and basically, what happened in most cases was they were very enthusiastic and tried to apply the formula that they'd been given, um, and it was it was embarrassing in many cases. It was, and nobody enjoyed it. And eventually, they usually gave up within a week or two.
Oh,
It was pretty pointless. So we then did some experiments with a number of organizations, and we're just in the process of actually looking for organizations to experiment to repeat those experiments. So if anybody out there is part of an organization that is interested in creating coaching cultures in their teams and would like me to be part of that experiment, please let me know. Um, but what we found was that if you focus on the team and the team leader learning about coaching together.
mm,
The team leader can't just create the team coaching culture, the coaching culture. They have to do it together.
mm,
And so in the experiments that we previously did and about to repeat, we basically gave people some videos, some questionnaires, things, some discussion notes and things, so that the team as a whole would meet during the course of their normal work. So after a normal team meeting, for example, for an hour or 2 hours, and they would talk about why do we need a coaching culture? How do we develop listening skills, etc., etc. So that the team created the coaching culture. And there's so that for us is the core thing. You focus on the team. There are other things, of course, that can be done, and it's about creating a coaching and mentoring strategy. And so, what are the pieces that you need in place to be able to actually make coaching the normal way that we do things? And those include things like looking at how you integrate external, internal coach provision, having internal trained coaches, accredited coaches internally, accredited team coaches internally. We're seeing a lot of interest in that, and we're working with very large organizations to create a sizable cadre of internal coaches and team coaches. But also about how do you link mentoring and coaching to the business drivers?
mm,
Yeah. What's the strategic priorities of this business? So how are coaching and mentoring going to be able to help those? So these are just some of the things that we can do, but having a strategy to integrate coaching and mentoring provision in that way is vital. There's one area we've been doing experiments with now for the last 3 years, and I'm really thrilled with. We call it reciprocal mentoring, but it doesn't matter what you call it. But we've been deeply concerned that um, organizations are really struggling to attack systemic or to deal with the systemic barriers to diversity and inclusion.
mm,
The policies, most policies don't work because they're not driven systemically, or they're not systemically driven, and they're not driven by the top and the bottom together.
mm,
What we've been doing is putting very senior people in the organization with more junior people who from a more diverse background, and we're giving them the task of of identifying systemic barriers to diversity and inclusion. And then we put them all together in a cohort, and the top and the bottom together design policies and strategies to address those things in the organization. It's radically different from anything that's ever been done before. Uh,
yeah.
and we're beginning to accumulate case studies. And we actually have a sort of a community of companies now that are that want to share experience in that. And again, if anybody would like to join that, just let us know. If that's something that you think it could be good in your company, let us know. Great. Um,
Yeah, this is great. I hear you said the questions are important, not the answers, because they will change throughout the time. I hear you say reciprocal coaching from top to down, down to top. It's brilliant to have that in the company culture, and create something together, not just because if it comes from the top, it doesn't go through the juniors. If it comes from the down, it doesn't
Nobody
reach the
listens.
top. So it should be reciprocal. So it's brilliant. And also in one of our workshops, I heard a young, in her career's beginning lady talk about coaching as a philosophers, because philosophers are asking questions. It's all
Yes.
about asking questions. I like the similarity between philosophy and coaching. You said
Yes.
the same thing, that the most important thing is the questions and not the answers. Yes.
When we're talking team coaching, we often say that coaching is like improv comedy because you're constantly you don't know what the next sentence is going to be. You don't know what's going to happen next. You just go with it, um,
Yes.
and it's a wonderfully creative environment. Yeah.
And as a team coacher, team coach, what do you see as the most common challenges teams face today, and how can team coaching address these effectively?
Well, one of the biggest challenges is actually being a team because most well, they call themselves teams, but they don't behave like teams. Um, and there are lots of factors behind this, but one of the principal factors is psychological safety.
Mhm.
Can people be authentic? Can they speak up? Um, excuse me. Can they actually offer ideas and know that those ideas will be considered and they won't be stolen from them, for example? Um, so it's these are one of the biggest areas of challenge, I think. Um, and what we're finding is there's an increasing transition from people helping the team leader to create, or coaches helping the team leader to create a coaching culture in their team,
Mhm.
and then moving to coaching the team as a whole with the team leader. And beyond that, coaching the team of teams. Um, and at each layer, we've actually identified 10 layers of complexity in coaching. So team coaching is somewhere in the middle.
Mhm.
At each level of each of those 10 levels of complexity, the coach can roughly add, double or more, or treble the value that they're adding.
Mhm.
And coaches want to have an impact. Coaches want to add value.
Mhm.
So I think that it's that the challenge is how do you actually enable to go beyond just teaching or coaching a few people to improve performance in something or get a promotion or whatever, to actually really affecting the system.
Mhm.
Um, and there's a lot of talk about systemic coaching or systemic team coaching. Mostly it's not really, it's systemic at a very low level. We now have to get to grips with the wider systems, the deeper systems, as complex adaptive systems, not as simple systems. Um, and that requires a lot more expertise on the behalf of the coach.
Mhm. Yes. I don't have anything else to say on this. Okay, so you have more than 70 books to your name,
Yeah.
including groundbreaking evidence-based titles. Which publication do you believe has had the greatest impact on the coaching and mentoring profession, and why?
Okay. Well, I got to cheat. I got to say, there are two that have had the biggest impact. So the first one was Everyone Needs a Mentor, which really um, um, started the whole developmental mentoring process. I mean, um, uh, and it very much in contrast to the American style of mixing sponsorship and mentoring, which doesn't really work. There's lots of reasons why, if you put two people together in a power relationship like that, the degree of honesty between them is not what you'd expect in a true learning partnership.
Mm,
Um, so everyone needs a mentor. Well, I don't know how many thousands and thousands of mentoring programs have resulted out of that book, but I know it's one of the best-selling, was the best-selling title ever of the CIPD who published it for many years. Um, The other book is Coaching the Team at Work, because that was the first time anybody had tried to identify what is it that team coaches do. Um, and in the first book, we gathered lots of evidence um, at the time. But in the second edition of the book, we had really incorporated a massive research that we'd done with people like Facebook, who gave me their highest performing teams globally to work with. Um, and we were able to move much more deeply into the complex adaptive systems area. And we now see that a team is a complex adaptive system nested within other complex adaptive systems. And so helping the team influence the systems around it is an increasingly important part of being a coach. And I think, I'm delighted to have opened up this dimension um, of genuine complexity and genuine systems thinking um, into the world of team coaching, and it comes back to me with in the supervision that I do. So we run a number of supervision groups specifically for team coaches,
Mhm.
um, um, and there we're really looking at helping them to step out, help the teams they work with step out of the normal routine of looking at things and just see the complexity of the system, but then to see the patterns. And one of my favorite instruments is one we call pain in the system. Um, and the way that it works is we look at the system on the basis that most of the time where the pain is felt is not where the pain is generated in the human body. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and so so we can see what are the headaches in the system. Where is there a lack of courage? So with the guts, where's the lack of courage? And so forth. We look at all the parts of the body and say, actually, how is that replicated in the organizational system? And just using that metaphor enables you to empathize with the system rather than the team or the individual.
Yes, that is great perspective. As referring it to as a pain and to look at it, the system from the big picture, not just to the area that hurts only, but what it caused it, like where is it coming from? It's a great strategy. Yeah, thank you so much for that. And as someone who leads a global network of mentoring and coaching consultants, what emerging trends or innovations do you see shaping the future of coaching and mentoring?
Well, there's so many. We've mentioned some of them already, but I think one of the big things that I'm deeply involved in um, is or the twin things of decolonization and democratization of coaching. Um, so the decolonization, getting away from this idea that there's one right way of doing it. We know that that's nonsense. That different cultures have very different approaches, and we need to value those. To give you an example, I was in the Solomon Islands and talking with coaches there, and they were talking to me about how one of the ways in which they coach, and they have a strong oral tradition.
Mhm.
And so they when they're sitting down and talking with somebody, and they will say they would develop. There'll be an issue comes up. The two of them will look for a parable, a story from their tradition that has relevance to this. And they'll look at the issue through the lens of the story. But then um, many of those stories also have a ritual dance attached to them. And so the coach and the coachee will set up and do the dance together. Wow, you won't see that in the normal competency frameworks, but it's part of the way that they coach. So the decolonization, recognizing that actually this is not something that was just invented in the States. That coaching and mentoring have been going on for thousands of years in wonderful ways, and we need to validate and recognize those. And the democratization, the challenge is, how do we get coaching and mentoring to people who can't afford it in the villages, in the Himalayas or Africa or wherever, where they don't have where the kids don't even have shoes. How do you get coaching and mentoring into those environments? So we have a program which we've been working on for some time, and it'll be at least a year before we finally release everything from our pilot programs. But we're aiming to get 5 million school age coaches and mentors globally. So kids coaching and mentoring kids.
Oh, that is great. That even sounds great. I can't imagine the impact of
Well,
how.
in the experiments we've done so far, the kids just get it very quickly.
Yes.
And in the materials, we have a whole chapter on how to mentor your parents.
I can tell from my two daughters. I have one 8-year and one 14-year-old daughters. And but most of the time they are coaching me.
Yes, yes. So
Because
yes,
they hear me asking questions from other room. And sometimes when I get angry in the house, they're like, Mommy, is that the end of the world? I'm like, okay, thank you for reminding me that.
yes, they're wonderful, and
They are.
it's a real it's a real joy to do this. So I think that those are two of the big things. The other big thing, of course, is AI, artificial
Mhm.
intelligence, and virtual reality. We're seeing coaching and mentoring moving increasingly into virtual reality. Slow, but it will get more.
Yes.
When those big goggle things are no longer are reduced to small classes like this, then it'll take off much more.
Mhm.
Um, and virtual and artificial intelligence, how do we use the power of AI to enhance our coaching and mentoring conversations, rather than let the AI take over?
Mhm.
So we're doing a lot of research into AI coach partnerships.
Mhm. Yeah, and a lot of coaches have already their bots. I don't know if you follow anybody's, but they have very good working bots already.
Oh
Like
yeah.
they implement all their coaching styles since they started till now, and then it gives answers as if the person talking to you. It's
Yeah.
crazy, but it's getting more and more real every day.
The implication for coaches in particular is how do you stay ahead of the bots? And the answer is from the Coach Maturity Research Group is very clear. You use more of yourself, of being a human being.
Mhm.
Um, and the you following the grow model or whatever particular model you the bot can do it better than a human. Got a bigger source of questions it can pull in. It can
Mhm.
it can read emotions better very often than a human being can. There's so many ways in which the more advanced bots can actually do the basic coaching. So the critical question for coaches is how do you raise the value that you give?
Mhm.
That's by dealing with greater and greater complexity, um, and with judgment. So,
Mhm.
or to be more precise, wisdom.
Mhm.
Um, and this is where mentoring, where coaching is catching up with mentoring, because mentoring is all about using your wisdom to help somebody else become wiser.
Yeah.
So it's the experience that you have, of life that enables you, to keep several steps ahead of the bot.
Mhm. Hopefully. So, my last question for aspiring coaches and mentors, what advice would you give on developing their skills and building a meaningful and impactful career in this field?
Well, we've started on the last question to talk about this, getting away from relying on process and routines. If you're following a routine and you say, I've got to do the G for goal and all that, then you're dead. That's coaching that's machine coaching. So, and why would you compete with a machine on something the machine can do better than you can?
Mhm.
Um, and so it's about how do you actually use your more of yourself? How do you grow your own wisdom, your ability to use the third of there are three kinds of wisdom. There's skinny wisdom, which a computer can do. So it's being very an expert on a particular topic. There's broad wisdom, which is about the meaning of life, really, and integrating experience. AI can't have experiences. When an AI tries to do some analysis, what it does is lots of data crunching of a great big picture, all of this material out there. When a human sees a picture, but when a human does some analysis, they just look at a picture and they just pick out a few things and they've got an answer. computers have no idea of how to do that because they don't have the experience that tells them what to look for. And there's no way we can, at the moment, think about how a computer could do that. Maybe in decades to come, it will be able to do that. But look. So valuing your experience, and the fascinating thing is that the Coach Maturity Research Group, our research tells us that actually the more advanced coaches become, the more like mentors they become, the more of their own experience they bring into the conversation. And so really getting to grips not with what do I do, but who am I?
Mhm.
So not the doing, but the being. And so engaging in supervision is very important in terms of enabling you to build that network, that foundation of experience in different situations, and to be able to reflect upon and put it into context. So it's about reading lots of books, but that's we could do that. It's about getting engaged with higher and higher levels of complexity.
Mhm.
Um, and so I think it's going to be very difficult for somebody who doesn't have at least a basic understanding of team coaching to function as a coach in 10 years' time, for example, because that's where the complexity is moving towards. So it's constant. It's about being, not doing. It's about engaging with complexity and systems. And if you do that, you've probably still got a very nice and enjoyable and self-fulfilling career.
Yes, other than being an expertise, having a niche area, what you said stuck with me, like adding dance in those coaching sessions. If you like dancing, I don't know if it's your culture or if you have musical background, you're integrating your coaching with music, or you're a nature lover, you can take your coaches into nature walkings. It's like very distinctive thing than AI can do. So those things come to my mind that I would like to add. Thank you so much for your answers. And is there any last message before we end this session?
I think simply that being a coach or a mentor is a wonderful privilege. And I think we shouldn't, it's not a, it's, we sometimes talk about the difference between a profession and a vocation. And I often say that coaching should be a provocation. It's a mixture of both.
Yes.
Um, and if it's not intimately tied out into your identity, if it's just a job you do, you're never going to to be really good at it.
Mhm. Wow, thank you so much for your time. It was wonderful to have your insights with our audience. I wish you a wonderful evening. And before we leave, I again would like to encourage our audience to hit the subscribe button on our channel for more insightful sessions like this. And don't forget to click on www.thecoachmagazine.com for our quarterly magazines. Thank you so much.
That's a pleasure. And if anybody wants to get more of the research that we're doing, and we can contact me, just follow me on LinkedIn,
Yes.
and there's always new research coming out.
Yes, Professor David Clutterbuck. I will add your LinkedIn account under our YouTube video also. Thank you so much. Have a lovely
Pleasure.
evening. Bye.
Bye.